Hi there, I'm Miss Osuna, and today we're going to work on faces. These faces are pouty, they have character and large eyes, and this is a way for you to stretch so that you can come up with a lot of different looks for your croquis. So we're going to start off with the basics. Do your oval shape, and of course, the center of the face is where the eye is, so that is where you start off with your frown for the top of your eye and then the smile for the bottom. Then you're going to go on ahead and use a series of smiles and frowns for the rest of your face. So we have a smile for the center of the eye. I put 2 of them. And of course, you want to add a second frown above the eye for your eyelid. Start off with the frown and then the smile, and that is the basic shapes of your top lip, and then just 2 diagonal lines for the bottom lip. Now go on ahead and put in 2 diagonal lines for the nostril and then the side of the face. Decide how wide you want the face to be. I recommend that you try this a million different ways because the combinations are endless. As you pull out the shapes for your chin, go on ahead and erase the lines that you don't need, only after you've drawn the lines in to start with. So we always draw first and erase second. Okay, so let's move on and let's do the rest of our face. So we need to have a frown for our eyebrow. Make sure it's wider than the eyes. And of course, any shape that you want. Put in the frown for the top of the ear and a smile for the bottom of the ear, and then go on and connect. And then let's move on. Add your parentheses shapes for your neck. And then it's going to be time for us to work on the shading. So I'm using 3 different markers, but of course any markers that you have in any combination is going to be fine. So this is sand color. So this is my second lightest color. So I'm showing you a different technique here. Instead of starting at the lightest color I usually do, I'm starting at the second lightest color. Okay, so we are just shading in left side of the eye and the right side of the eye, above the eye and below it. And then just the triangle shape at the nose. That's how we start. I have more shading on the left because the left side is my shadow side. And then I have less shading on the right because that's my light source side. Once again, this is the sand color, but any color that you choose, just pick your second lightest color instead of the first. We're trying something different this time just to see which way works best for you. Now I'm going to let that sit for a minute, and then I'm coming in with my lightest color on top so that I can start to fill in and you can see the shadows with the lighter color on top. So my lighter color here is called Beach, but once again, whatever you have for your combinations, go on ahead and use it. Just go to your lightest color next. You can do this in every shade. Peach, you can do it in dark browns, you can do it in caramel, tan colors, reddish colors, it's up to you. So I've colored in now with my lightest color second. And I only have very few light spaces around the eyes and on the lips. Now with the caramel, this is my darker color. I'm going to use the point of my pen and I am literally adding deeper shadows. So see if that technique works a little better for you to start off with your second lightest, then go to the lightest, and then finish with the darkest. As I continue on, I am just now basically allowing the deeper tones to sit on the paper and that will cause the shadow to be darker. So when I go over it once again with the same marker, I will be able to have a darker shadow that just makes it feel a tiny bit more realistic. Okay, so I'm touching up the ear here, just a little bit of that darker color, a little bit underneath the lip. And then we're going to continue on repeating the whole process. So we go back to that first color that we used in our combination. Remember that first color was sand, and it was our second lightest color. It wasn't the very lightest, it was the second lightest. So we're just repeating this whole process all over again until you get the depth that you want. So this second lightest is now on top of all three shades, and you can see it just starts to blend and fill in. Okay, so now I'm going to move to an eye color. In this case, I've chosen to do a blue color, and of course you can choose any eye combination color that you want. So I'm going to start with the outer edges of our eye on both the left and the right eye. I've left the center completely white. Now I'm just going to go on ahead and move to a slightly darker eye color. It just has more saturation. So this is the far outer edge. It's just going to add to it. Next, I'm going to use a fine point black pen. And this is just a regular pen that I have, not specifically for drawing. This one is, I believe I purchased it probably from the dollar store. So you can use a combination of high-low, very expensive materials and pens and markers mixed in with less expensive, because it's not so much the marker itself, it's what you do with it. So I'm just adding to the center of the eye here. And you can see that as you continue to add more to your eye colors, then the eye just feels a little bit more realistic. So now I'm moving to black colored pencil on the very top. And remember, these are moody, kind of pouty. They're not necessarily smiling and super friendly looking. And that's the goal for this particular exercise, but you can certainly do this any way that you want. You could turn these same faces into smiling, friendly faces. So I just put black colored pencil on the top, and now I'm moving to mechanical pencil for the bottom, just to start off underneath my eye. I like to do a thinner version under the eye and a heavier version of whatever I'm using on the top. That makes it feel a little bit more like mascara on top. And I typically like to do a heavier lash on the top, but of course you can develop your own sense of style for that, and you can choose to do whatever you like. All right, so now I'm going to layer up, and I'm going to switch back to black colored pencil, and I'm just going to add to the lashes. And then once again, I'll go back to my black fine point. This is just a typical writing ballpoint pen, but you can also use your micron, and you can also use the fine point side of any black design marker that you may have. I'm going for a very exaggerated eyebrow here, because with that pouty look, I feel like that's a good choice. Now I'm going to use that fine point to start off with the bottom of my eyebrow, and then I'm going to draw the diagonal lines on top of it. So there I have the frown, and then the diagonal lines to fill it in sit on top of that frown. That's how I start to fill in the eyebrow. Now I'm going to fill in a lip, and I'm not doing a traditional color because this is not a traditional looking model. So I'm going to start off with green, and that is something that you want to play with. I'm leaving the center empty, and I'm filling in the top and the bottom around it. So leaving that center with just the paper that lets the light reflect. So that was my first green, and now I'm going to go with a darker green right on top of that, and that's going to be in the center to start, and then on the upper edges and on the bottom edges. And I'm just very gently moving left, right, and up and down. Still leaving that white space in the center of the lip, both on the top and bottom lip. Now I'm going to go back to my first green and just start to fill out the outer edges a tiny bit. It just takes a very, very slight touch. Next, I'm going to go into that darker green just to add those final touches. And you can see that you can create all different types of looks with just the tiniest bit of exaggeration on the corner of the mouth. So her mouth on the left side is up a little bit higher than the right side. That just adds some character. But try every combination possible. Now I'm just going to add another layer of skin tone. So I'm going in with my caramel color, and this is my darker color because everything has had a chance to sit. That's one of the keys to your sketching, is that you have to allow your work to dry completely before adding more color to it in order for you to be able to see the depth. So you can see this is my darker tone, and very easily the sketch starts to come together because it's had a chance to sit. So I did skin tone at first, and then I jumped to the eyes, then the lips, and then I went back to the skin tone. That gave it a chance to sit and really start to blend together nicely, because now I'm adding my darkest tone, but you can see it doesn't feel too harsh. It's blending in nicely with everything that's right underneath it. And here I'm just going back to my beach color, that was actually my lightest one, with my fine point side of it, because I'm blending now, literally. So I've gone from my darkest now to my lightest, and I'm blending it. So this is something that it'll just take you time to develop which way your brain works best. Practice both ways. Practice going from light to dark, practice going from dark to light, and then practice going from medium to light to dark. Now here I just have brown colored pencil. This is chocolate, and I'm just filling in some of my brow. I very much like to mix having a fine point pen with a colored pencil. I feel like that gives a nice full look. Now here's something, it's a purple tone that's going to be next after this peach. So I'm just putting a little bit of peach on the cheek area and the sides of the face and in the inner eye, because I want to soften everything and just add one more layer of depth. So color pencil on top of marker gives extra layers of depth, but get ready because we're going to actually use an orchid color in a purple to blend with our colored pencils next. So even though she's an ivory skin tone, this purple at certain places does help a lot. So here I have it at the inner eye, I have it at the cheek on the left, on the ear on the left, and then I've moved to the right, and I have it on the cheek as well, and the eye on the right side of the sketch. This is just adding a tiny bit of depth. This very light orchid color is not something that you can detect right away, but the subtleness of it is the key here. So just use it very sparingly, barely touching the page in little circles and mostly on the outer edges, and you see it just brings the face to life. If I were doing a darker skin tone, I would use a chocolate. So now I'm back to my lightest color and I'm blending on top of my orchid colored pencil. And once again, this is just allowing all of those layers to melt together. So this is my lightest color. My lightest color happens to be beach. And I am blending that colored pencil down. So you're going to go from marker to colored pencil and back and forth. And that's not only true for skin, that's true for all of your fashion sketching. And that's how you're able to render in a way that gives you lots of layers and lots of realistic looks. I'm just going to add a touch of grayish blue to the outer edges of the eye, and that's it for this tutorial. Now let's examine some of the faces here on this page. So the first face on the far left has a dusty, almost a dishwater blonde hair color. And these eyes are very round, but notice the right side eye is wider than the left eye. So it's a little bit more open. That's a very small distinction, but it does add to her character. Also notice that the sketch on the far left side has lips that are very round in comparison to the nose only showing the nostril. So that comparison gives you this almost porcelain doll-like effect. Her chin is very small and pointed, but the width of her face is wide. So it almost looks like a heart-shaped face. So that's one combination that you can try. And she's wearing purple lipstick in contrast to her skin tone. The eyes are shaded deeper tones at the center of the eye and on the outer of the edges by the cheek. And that contrast is helpful if you want to capture the feeling of more drama. Now the sketch in the center is quite different from the sketch on the far left. Her face is longer here in the center. Her chin is further away from her lips, and she has a very similar nose, but the shading for the inner eye by the nose and cheeks is not as severe as it is in the sketch on the far left. So these are some of the things that you can play around with when you're trying to come up with different ways to create your looks. If you take a look on the far right where she has curly hair, her brunette curly hair is contrasted nicely with her deep purple lipstick, and her eyes and her eyebrows are much more prominent. Her eyelashes, for example, go all the way across the bottom, and they're very heavy in comparison to the first two sketches on the left side and the center. So you can try different thicknesses of eyelashes and different strengths of eyebrow as well. Moving on, we have a darker skin tone, and this particular sketch is showing you eyes that are very prominent, eyebrows that are very, very strong, especially on the top lid, and she has freckles. And that is something that you can add just to give a bit of interest and a slight more human feeling, because it's not quite so model perfect with the freckles. To take a closer look at the eyes, I've added white gel pen underneath the eyebrow. And then I've also added some white gel pen for the eyelid itself and also for the lashes. So that's another technique. The eye color, even though it's a very dark brown, I do have some very light gray, and that just helps to show the light reflection. And then in the center of the eye, of course, it's just white paper, and that's what's allowing the light to bounce off of the page. Also, I just want to point out that this particular sketch is created with chocolate marker, and cinnamon marker, and then I have terracotta colored pencil and black on the very outer edges for the colored pencil. So you can play with your various shades. For the highlights, I'm using white and peach. But play around with whatever colors you have. Don't let the markers stop you. If you happen to have red and green only, play around with the various shades of red and green, and you'd be surprised at what beautiful things you can come up with. That, of course, leads us to the one that we created today. Very round face, soft ivory tones with peach undertones, green lips, strong eyes, and that is just the beginning. The possibilities truly are endless. So I highly recommend that you take some time, look at lots of models in magazine photo shoots, go online, research your favorite designers, and look at the models that they have chosen. Try all different types. This is just front view sketches, and you can do so much with just a basic front view face by just changing slight things. And we'll do more. 3/4, we'll do side profiles. There's all kinds of angles from down up and aerial view from top to bottom. But this is just to get the wheels turning. I'm Miss Osuna, and I look forward to meeting you again on our next tutorial. Until then, happy sketching.